Alrighty, welcome back, folks. Wrapping up my last video of the night. Grabbing some coffee here as well. If you've watched my previous videos, you know I need a little bit of it going to keep going here. But what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up with the Indy Fuel goaltenders, what their stats were for last week. And then we're going to move along to a little bit of an analysis and reaction to what happened with the Fuel last weekend, as well as just taking a quick look at what happened, or what will be happening, what their schedule looks like for the upcoming week. So we will go ahead and jump right into that. For Fuel goaltenders, Zach Driscoll now has played in 39 games, so 21 wins, loses his 15th game in regulation and third game in overtime. Driscoll now 2,298 minutes on the year. His GAA will go from 2.92. Actually, we'll take a quick look at that here. It's going to change on a decimal because he goes from 2,179 minutes up to 2,298. Goes from 2.919 and up just slightly to 2.924. So it goes up again, but just a very, very slight decimal. Again, Driscoll's save percentage goes from 904, and that will drop just very slightly down to 9.03. Again, his save percentage on the week was 89.5. So again, not horrible, not the best, but again, not horrendous. So yeah, Cam Gray did play. He's up to 8 games played now. Gray now 5-2 in those 8 games played. 24 times the Fuel have had an empty net. We'll have 5 empty net goals on the year now. But Gray 5-2 on the season. His goals against average, as he's now up to 411 minutes played, drops from 3.58 down to 3.21. His save percentage will increase from 893 up to 899, as he has now faced 217 shots on his season with 195 saves. Again, Cam Gray getting his 5th victory of the year on Sunday. That was really nice to see. Going to go ahead and go over what the Fuel have going for them all time in terms of games. Zach Driscoll now in 6th place by himself with 39 games played. For Cam Gray now 22nd in career games played, just one back of Gordon Dayfield and Michael Lackey for the 20th most in Fuel history. Driscoll still sitting in 6th place all time with 21 victories, as Gray becomes the 18th different Fuel goaltender to win 5 or more games in his career, tied for the 15th most wins in Fuel history with Eric Levine, Tom Auburn, and Cody Reichard. Gray right now has the 4th best winning percentage straight up in team history with a .714 winning percentage. But among qualified goaltenders now, of course, Mitchell Weeks right now leads that category. Billy Christopoulos is 2nd, and then Charles Williams, Mitch Gillum, Zach Driscoll currently sitting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7th among winning percentage, just below Matt Tompkins. In terms of career goals against average, again on the pure number, Driscoll currently sits at 2.92, which among qualified goaltenders, among all goaltenders, that is the 14th best all-time. But again, among qualified goalies, Billy Christopoulos is number 1 all-time. Number 2 is Shane Owen. And then number 3 is Matt Carruth. Mitchell Weeks is number 4. Number 5 is Charles Williams. Number 6 is Cale Morris. And then Zach Driscoll coming in 7th at 2.92. And then, as I mentioned, Cam Gray at 3.21 for his career. In terms of minutes played, Zach Driscoll currently sits at the 6th most in Fuel history with 2,298 minutes played. Back of Jake Hildebrand now is who he is tracking down. He is 373 minutes back of Hildebrand, or about 6 games back of Hildebrand for career minutes played. And then Cam Gray currently sitting in 22nd in career minutes played with 411, 56 minutes back of Michael Lackey for 21st. Goals against, the most goals allowed all time in Fuel history is Matt Tompkins. Cam Gray now sits in 23rd in goals against. He's allowed 22, while Zach Driscoll has allowed the 6th most goals in Fuel history, tied with Eric Levine now with 112 goals against. And the funny thing about that is that Driscoll has played in 7 more, or has played so far in 7 more games than Levine, that has allowed the same number of goals. In terms of saves, Driscoll up to 1,157 in his Fuel career. That is the 7th most in Fuel history. Currently sitting 97 back of ATN Marcoux for the 6th most in Fuel history, while Cam Gray currently sits in 21st with 217 saves, 71 back of Justin Kapelmaster for the number of shots against, excuse me, that's what both of those were, shots against for Driscoll and Gray. In terms of saves, Zach Driscoll has 1,045 saves in his career, 106 back of ATN Marcoux for the 6th most all time, while Cam Gray is 195. That's the 21st most in Fuel history. He is 64 saves back of Gordon Dayfield for the 20th most saves in Fuel history. In terms of save percentage, the best all time is Taran Kozin in terms of pure save percentage, but among qualified goaltenders, that mark goes to Shane Owen. Number 2 among all from qualified goaltenders is ATN Marcoux. Number 3 among all from qualified goaltenders is Matt Carruth. Number 4 is Billy Christopoulos. And then number 5 is Dan Bakala. Number 6 is Charles Williams. Number 7 is Matt Tompkins. And then sitting in 8th right now is Zach Driscoll. And to just kind of give you folks a little bit of a rundown on that, I've said multiple times on these videos, qualified goaltenders, that's just because there are a certain number of goaltenders that have not played in a lot of games. So just what my personal number for that is I average out the total number of minutes played in Fuel history by Fuel goaltenders. The pure number average is 1,017 minutes in Fuel history. So as long as that goaltender has played in greater than 1,017 minutes in Fuel history, I consider them a qualified goaltender. And again, I also try to get the number of games played in Fuel history. Again, right now that number is about 18 and a half games. So it's typically, as long as you played in 18 games and have greater than 1,017 minutes, that's what I consider to be the all-time leaders in the average statistics such as point percentage or goals against average and save percentage for Fuel goaltenders all time. That way you don't have those numbers, as I mentioned, with that the pure number in terms of save percentage. You have Taran Kozin right now leading the way. Taran Kozin played in 1 game for the Fuel during the 2020-2021 campaign. And again, outside of that, the next 2 guys down there are Greg Dodds, the Dodd father for Corey there. Played 5 games for the Fuel during their 17-18 campaign. And then Cedric Desjardins had a .932 save percentage in 1 game played during the 15-16 campaign. So again, those guys, again, only played 1, 5, and 1 game. And then again, the next up is Sean Romey, who played 6 games for the Fuel during that 2020-2021 campaign. So in the top 4 all-time, the most games played among any of those goaltenders was just 6 games, 321 minutes, compared to, again, the average being over 1,000, which is, again, 1,017 minutes played by those Fuel goaltenders. That's what I mean when I'm talking about the average or the qualifying goaltenders in Fuel history. So we'll go ahead and jump in, give a little bit of analysis on what happened last weekend for the Fuel. Again, not a great result in losing, being shut out by Greenville 2-0. But again, Greenville right now in first place in the South Division, still vying for that first place. 1 point lead right now in that. They turned around and they beat Toledo, or they lost to Toledo, but then beat the Walleye in a shootout on Sunday. So there's really no shame in that, I guess. It's still a tough pill to swallow, the fact that they did get shut out at home. That does concern me, that it felt like just, and again, on Saturday's game, that's the game that concerned me a lot more, was because I just don't think that Driscoll had his A game. Kalamazoo went up 2-0 in that game, and I just feel like the team wasn't able to rally around Driscoll and pick him up. I mean, it's something that they've relied on him to do quite a bit this year, is to make these incredible saves. And I was a little bit disappointed in that, considering again that Driscoll did not have his A game, that the team was not able to pick him up after that. But all in all, you got the wins when you needed to, I guess. You got one win on the weekend. Um, it is, however, slightly concerning that over these past couple of games that you haven't had a dominant home stretch. The Fuel have had, you know, of two, one of three, or two of three, three of four, four of five, five of six, six of seven at home, and of those six, they are. Let's get this here. They've lost two in overtime, and then two in regulation. Two in regulation? Let's see here. There's two overtime losses. Two, three, four, five, six. Yeah, so two wins, two losses, two overtime losses in those six games for the Fuel. So again, 500 across the board. That's really not that great. Again, to have six of seven at home and to go 500, I understand that the competition's a little bit stiffer. Again, you've only had two of those games against non-playoff teams, um, but even when it comes down to crunch time, I don't really care who you're playing. You really got to find a better way to get through that. So again, to play 6 to 7 games and to go 2-2-2 in those home games, and to just go 3-2-2 over that stretch to win that other road game. Even if you want to go one road game back again, they lost that game in Iowa starting on the 10th of March. Um, so again, through that 8 game stretch to go pretty much 500 in that 8 game stretch, um, or just below 500 of that 8 game stretch. Mostly home games, 6 out of 8 games at home. That's not that great. They again have more of an opportunity with two home games coming up, or their next 3 home games are against non-playoff teams. With a game coming up against Wheeling on Friday, I'm really concerned about the game against Toledo, but I think that that's going to be a really good litmus test for this team. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to kind of see what happens, see what the team has to prove, because that's likely who your first round opponent in the playoffs is going to be. With Toledo right now being 11 points clear of the Fuel, and with Cincinnati being 4 points clear of Toledo, it's very, very likely that it's going to be Toledo in the first round. So I really want them to, even if they lose the game, I want them to at least play well, because their last game in Toledo, they just got completely dominated. Um, I did see some flashes in the Fuel's last home game against the Walleye. So I'm really interested to see what adjustments Dalmeo is able to make for this weekend's game. Um, and then I'm not that concerned about Sunday's game against Kalamazoo. You got to show up, you got to play. But Kalamazoo's really just kind of playing with house money right now. They really don't have a lot to play for except for pride. But if you know hockey players, you know they got some pride. So you can expect what typically comes from a Kalamazoo team in that game. They're going to play hard. They're not going to back down. They're not going to give up. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in terms of where the roster goes, what happens with those. I did, again, like I said, I saw that they brought back Finn Evans. I'm really happy about that. I did hear a rumor that Kirill Chaika will be returning this weekend as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It'll be interesting to see if we get any more help back from Rockford in terms of if Bielek's coming back down, if Coltrane Wilson's going to come back down. He always provides a nice veteran presence, but it'll just be interesting to see kind of what happens this weekend. Um, I'm a little bit spoiled. We got just a handful of games coming up on Wednesday. There's 5 games coming up on Wednesday. Um, Definitely want to watch Kansas City and Idaho on Wednesday. And then we also have Florida and Atlanta. That is absolutely for playoff position in the South Division. And then again, we got coming up on Friday, we do have all the teams in action on both Friday and Saturday. So that will be interesting to see what happens with that. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm looking at for this week for the fuel. Also coming up on Saturday, um, if you're not making that trip up to Toledo, which I will be, so listen for me on the broadcast after the fuel score. Hopefully they'll score more than once so you can hear me on the broadcast. But listen for me taking that road Chelsea Dagger with us. But if you're not doing that, absolutely check out the Indy 11. They got their home opener coming up this weekend as well. So it's going to be chilly, but it's always a good time out there. So absolutely go check out the 11 if you're not going to be headed to Toledo to watch the field play. Otherwise, you can take your phone with you out to Michael Carroll Stadium and watch the 11 play. But other than that, that's what I think we got going for the fuel this week. Again, 2 home games against non-playoff teams. You really need at least 4 points. I'd really love to have all 6. I know I'm getting greedy, but with playoff time coming up, you got less than 10 games left in the regular season. I really want to see this team playing their best hockey at this stretch of the year. I really want to see the Fuel be able to win a first-round playoff series against a divisional opponent. I mean, the 4 games against Toledo just really left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, it felt like they were very, very close back in 17-18, but unfortunately weren't able to win a single game. They haven't won a home playoff game ever in their history. That's another thing that we have to watch out for. So I really want to see them change that as well. I mean, I'd love to just stick it in Toledo's face. I got nothing against Toledo fans, and I got nothing against the players themselves. It's just a matter of it's very, very frustrating that, again, I mean, I've told you what the point percentage is. It's been very, very low against the Walleye all time. So I'd really love for them to finally just get that monkey off their back and shake off some of those playoff demons and finally get a good taste in our mouth in the postseason here for some hockey in the Circle City. So that's what we got coming up this week. As always, drop a comment down below if you folks think of anything else that you would like to see on these videos moving forward. Otherwise, drop a like, subscribe, and I will see you folks later this week after their game against Wheeling. Take care, and let's go Fuel.